Hello Internet and welcome to this day in history for the 5th of October. Today will probably be a short one, but we are in 816 AD and we are in Rheims in France, where Pope Stephen is crowning Louis the Pious as Emperor of the Carolingian Franks. Now, why is this so important? Well, it's kind of important because while he was mostly just continuing in the footsteps of his father, Charlemagne, who was following in his father's footsteps and so on, this was the first time after the great Charlemagnean conquests that emperor had to be changed. Well, of course, Charlemagne was the first emperor, but this was the first time a sovereign had to be changed in the great Carolingian Empire. And it happened without too much fuss, to be completely honest. Louis' rule was not exactly uncomplicated, and he had a lot of trouble in his later years with various rebellions led against him by his sons, but his takeover from Charlemagne was surprisingly problem-free. One might have imagined that some of the subjugated peoples would have taken this opportunity to try to break loose, especially perhaps the Saxons, who had been nothing but a thorn in the side of Charlemagne, but none of this happens. He just became emperor and king of the Saxons and Romans and all other subjugated people, and there wasn't really any kind of problems. This meant that there were time to weld Western and Central Europe into one coherent cultural whole. Now, of course, under his sons, later, this meant that they were separated again into various kingdoms, which eventually developed into France and Germany and all other modern states, but it also meant that they were united under this whole common sense of destiny, that even though you were perhaps fighting with each other and rivals with each other, you were still from the same stock, you were still from the same idea, the same origins, you were still basically the same kind of nation and culture, even though, of course, you might be enemies for a very long time. This would probably not have happened if Charlemagne hadn't been so successful, and the crowning of Louis itself as such is not important in and of the crowning, but more what it said about what Charlemagne and his advisors and noblemen had managed to do with their conquest. In fact, they had united Europe as not seen since the halcyon days of the Western Roman Empire. The Frankian realms would of course be threatened by Nordic corsairs and by invasions from various outside tribes, but at this point it was clear that Europe was again whole after the uprisings and upheavals of the migration periods following the original fall of the Western Roman Empire and the successful crowning without any kind of problems or civil wars, and Louis was a symbol of that. But that was it for the 5th of October for this day in history. Until next time, I have been the Sage, and I wish you all a very happy day.